The one time I got high, I was convinced a dog was talking to me.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
So Velma Season 2 premiered on HBO Max, and this time they dropped the entire season all at once, instead of previously how they dropped 2 episodes a week. There wasn't much build up to the season either. Maybe all the backlash made them want to just get it over with. Can't say I blamed them. Although unfortunately it has been confirmed that we're getting a Halloween special. Warner Brothers had already greenlit all of this before production started. I guess they weren't expecting the show to be so poorly received, so they greenlit 20 episodes and a special. What I can't get my head around though is that they're canceling a bunch of already completed projects or near completed projects, and yet they actually bothered to release this. I really struggled to come up with some kind of explanation. It's hard to even tell who the target audience is supposed to be. It's clearly not for Scooby-Doo fans. The show takes a lot of pot shots at the source material, to the point where it's more mean-spirited than playful ribbing. There's even one joke where they put a photo of the original Shaggy in urine. That's messed up, WB. Then the humor is really dependent on references, and even if you do get the jokes, it's just not funny. It's like that Elizabeth Holmes joke I talked about when we were discussing the trailer for this season. First of all, how many people are even going to get this reference? I only get it because I like true crime. But also, what about referencing her makes this funny? And then the rest of the jokes are just hating on different people groups, which also isn't very funny. It seems more like this whole show is just in-jokes for the people behind it, rather than having a set audience in mind. It also feels like the people behind this show are probably in an echo chamber, which would explain why they thought it was a good idea to make this show only for it to get a bunch of backlash. People outside their echo chamber rejected it. Scooby-Doo is a long-running evergreen brand, and while I'm not against them having darker and more adult takes like Scooby Natural or Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, this just wasn't it. It also has a pretty serious lack of focus. The show is supposed to be a mystery comedy, but we already discussed how the comedy falls flat. And as far as the mystery goes, for the most part the episodes are wasting time, with only a few relevant moments. I'm not saying they have to spend every moment advancing the plot, but most of the episode is dedicated to bad jokes and drama. It's like they forget they're supposed to be solving a mystery, but I'll expand more on that later. Velma herself is still as unlikable as ever. She constantly complains about how much she hates the rich and popular, but really she's just jealous of them, because as soon as she gets rich and popular, she acts the exact same way she was criticizing others of acting. It might have been interesting if that had been her character arc for this season, and she grew past that, but no, she just leans into it. And she's also still a horrible friend, and girlfriend, and person in general. I really don't get the choices behind this character, especially considering the fact that it's pretty clear she's a self-insert of Mindy Kaling. Why would she choose to portray herself this way? Last season, the entire gang had a crush on Velma. However, this time around, Fred and Norville are too hung up on what happened to Victoria Jones. Norville having extreme guilt over having accidentally killed her, and Fred being devastated at the loss of his mother, which ends up taking precedent over their feelings for Velma, so only Daphne is left being in love with her. But Daphne isn't really given a good reason to actually feel this way. It kind of feels like it's just that it's in the script. And they spent most of the season and series arguing, and I really don't understand this ship. At least Fred and Norville are free of this love square. Norville is now the one having hallucinations, where he sees both Fred and Victoria guilting him over what happened. Even though it really wasn't his fault, he was acting in self-defense. But these hallucinations continue to be the best part of the show. The animation overall is really good, but we get some really creative visuals during these sequences. His dad, who is the school's guidance counselor, is pressuring him to take weed, and that's pretty much the only advice he has. There was also another scene where Amon was encouraging Dia to drink scotch. I can't help but feel like this show is just saying to use substances instead of actually acknowledging your problems, which is quite the take. And Norville doesn't even want to take this. He's been buying people's urine just so he could pass these drug tests. In an ironic twist where they actually want the test to be positive. This is also why they put Shaggy's picture in P. Seriously, what is this show? Anyway, Norville also starts a relationship with one of the brains, a girl named Lola, but it ends up falling through because Norville doesn't actually know who Lola is, and he keeps mistaking her for one of the other girls. Yeah, Norville's not a good boyfriend. Gigi is still in the show, but her role is greatly reduced. And it's pretty obvious that she still has feelings for him. I still feel bad for her, she deserved better. Then there's Fred, who still still managed to look the best in this show. Admittedly, that's not saying much, but still, ironic. Fred's whole character arc basically boils down to having to accept that his mother didn't love him, which is very sad.
Mother, if you're here, send a sign. It is her ghost. She's ignoring me.
His dad and Velma's mom end up falling in love, and he and Dia actually end up bonding, which was surprisingly nice, given how cynical and mean-spirited this show typically is. But this is obviously the first time he's actually had a motherly relationship, which is ironic because Dia was a terrible mom to Velma. Speaking of mothers, it turns out the hallucinations that Norval's been having were actually a haunting by Victoria's ghost. It turns out ghosts are real, and she tries to take over Fred's body to force him to become what she wants, which would also kill him in the process. But Fred stands up to her, and she's actually proud of him for this, which is kind of nice. Kind of. I think this was supposed to be funny, but it was just sad. This didn't work. Anyway, now that ghosts have been proven, it turns out that Norval's grandmother is not only not a ghost, but she never died to begin with. She actually went into hiding so she can continue to work on her experiments, cutting off contact with her family in the process, which Norval makes a point of multiple times, as is his right. She actually becomes a pretty prominent character, and even manages to restore the brains to their proper bodies, so that was nice. It took a lot of prodding because she wanted to use the bodies for her own benefit, but she got there eventually. Nice to see some actual character growth. But she's been hiding from the military this entire time, who it turns out never actually scrapped Project Scooby, and it's a whole can of worms. So instead of taking the brains out of meddling kids, they would just keep an eye on meddling kids. And they thought the best way to do that was with a cute animal sidekick that would keep kids entertained. So they created Scrappy Doo. Yeah, the show wasn't allowed to use Scooby, but they are allowed to use Scrappy, and it totally comes out of left field. And they really go out of their way to play into the Scrappy hate. I really think the Scrappy hate is overblown. Growing up, I would watch Scooby-Doo movies, like Scooby-Doo and the Ghoul School and the Reluctant Werewolf. So for most of my childhood, I was totally unaware of all the hate, and Scrappy was actually very well received when he was first introduced. But as the years went on, people started to really get tired of him, to the point where it became very popular to just dump on the character, like in the live-action James Gunn movies, where Scrappy was the villain, which is true for this show too. And whenever they bring him up in the shows, they just take pot shots at him.
Wow, I haven't seen...
Look away, Daphne. We all promised each other that we would never speak of him. Not ever.
It's gotten way too much. He's just a little puppy. So they made him to spy on kids, and they also made him an indestructible super soldier. I think a spy would have been enough. But Scrappy made everybody uncomfortable, so then he got mad and killed everyone associated with Project Scooby. So he's the serial killer this time around. And it's just as out of left field as Victoria was. There was practically no setup for any of this. And things only get more confusing from here. It turns out Sophie is involved in all of this, which makes absolutely no sense, and also came out of left field for no reason. But apparently she's been working for the army this entire time, and her being the owner of the diner was just her being undercover, all to spy on meddling kids. She was the one who noticed that Dia was researching Dr. Purdue's work, which means that she knew that Dia was missing and didn't just walk out on the family, but she still got with her husband, had a baby with him, and moved into the house. I think this whole thing just ruins Sophie's character, but again, it feels like this is all happening because the plot demanded it, and not because this is actually in character for her or something that she would do on her own. Sophie's role this season is that she wants to get married to Amon, who by the way did get the house back after Velma changed the locks, but she puts a lot of work into the house. And there's a whole episode of her and Amon talking about their future together, so then they end up having a double wedding with William and Dia. The thing is, this entire time she's been running around as this Uncle Scooby character. Get it? Uncle Scooby, because it's Scrappy. I hate this show. And Scrappy was her idea to begin with. She says that the military would never take her seriously because she was a young hot woman, so she came up with this Uncle Scooby disguise, and suggested making a talking dog to infiltrate kids groups. But when Scrappy turned out to be a monster, he ended up killing everybody besides Uncle Scooby. So Sophie decides the best thing to do is to run away with Scrappy and live in hiding, to protect her family and stop these killings. None of this makes any sense and pretty much goes against everything we know about these characters right now. It all came out of nowhere, and it's really just being done to dump on the original source material and Scrappy's character. Even though Scrappy being the villain was already done before and this isn't even new. Scrappy ends up attacking the wedding and killing many of the guests, Velma decides to have a showdown with him one-on-one, trying to kill him with chocolate. Although they did establish that he was indestructible, so I'm not even sure if that would work. Either way, it doesn't matter because Daphne replaced the chocolate she had with baby carrots. So she's left defenseless against him, and he ends up killing her. So yeah, Velma dies. Was he really the bad guy, when you think about it? Just a question. Anyway, Velma ends up coming back as a ghost, and then kills Scrappy. You know, when you really think about it, he was just a victim of circumstance. Okay, I'll stop now. So the season ends with us getting the stinger for the Halloween special, which I doubt anyone's looking forward to, but hopefully that will finally be the end of Velma. They've already announced a new Scooby-Doo show, one that will be live action. We'll have to see how that goes, but hopefully it'll be better than this. Honestly, Velma Season 2 was just more of the same. Nonsensical plots, an unlikable main character, comedy that just isn't funny, and I really wish that Warner Brothers had used this show instead of other properties for their tax write-off. Allegedly. I don't have any hopes for the Halloween special. I can only hope that this will be the last we'll see of Velma. But let me know what you thought of Velma Season 2. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much for watching. Before I go, I want to give a shout out to our members: Tyrant Carnivore, Shiny Orc Boy, General Bolivar, Depth Charge Media, Samaru163, Gabby Hime, Verdant Range, JVR, Phil C, Taylor Ramirez, Equestron, Norman Sweet Cream, Way Beyond Coincidence, Hunter Rose, 80s Nostalgia Guy, Felix Bam, Lucas Geist, J Draws, Meowsers, Sky, Jinke Z, Philip, Isaac Martinez, Garcia XV Legend, Datadyne Executive, Tobias Weller, Bandito Bane, Owen Wildish, Mac B909, Caleb Nelson, Datadyne Executive, and Crimson Phantom. Thank you all so much for your support. If you'd like to become a member, you can hit the join button next to the subscribe button. We also have a Buy Me Coffee if you want to support us that way. If you enjoyed the video, you can leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content. And that part's free. Thanks again for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.